So welcome back. This is the next part of our talk with Michael Dillon here at the Meet the Artist Night at the Alpharetta Art Center. And I forgot to mention earlier, I'm Michael Buchanan and part of the Arts Alpharetta group. So Mike, thank you so much. That was wonderful what you told us about process and everything and all that leads up to the point where we have a finished product. And then out here is what everything became. And so we want to ask you a few questions about this. And we've got some questions from the audience too that we'll take and see what their take on it is. So I know that this one has been here in the Art Center for several years now. Since the Art Center opened, it was our premier piece, and we were thrilled to have it. And every time I walk in, I give it a spin. And so sometimes it kind of freaks people out because they can't tell if it's about to fall over or what. So, but I love it, and everybody does. So what was the origination of this? And so once again, we're back to the flight theme.
Yeah, I think Avion was built in the studio at my current location. So when I moved from Roswell, most of the architectural work was done there. When I built the new studio, I had the feeling that I wanted to do more of my artwork or get back to my roots as an artist, a fine artist, and this was one of the first pieces that I built there. It had been a couple pieces that weren't necessarily together but had been around a while. I believe the backbone was forged in Roswell, but I had it as part of a scrap pile and hunted down some bronze and decided to make it a kinetic work of art.
So this was, you already had this?
Yep.
As part of leftover from something else?
Well, it had been, I believe, a test of some new drawing dies that I put on one of my hammers.
Right.
And it had a really cool texture in it that I liked, so.
And the base you made separate once you figured this out?
Yeah, and it was really kind of inspired by the material itself. There weren't any drawings done.
Right. At what point did you realize, I want this thing to spin?
Yeah, I mean, presenting it's always difficult, you know, how to present the art. And I always felt like someone could be brought into the piece through discovery. Like you said, you don't know that it moves, but when you do, it's an excitement that, you know, that you can't really walk away from. You want to touch it, so.
Right. Yeah, when it moves, after that moment when you think you've knocked it over, then it's cool. So how did you make each part of the wing?
Those were done under the hydraulic press, one at a time, and I made the die, bottom die and a top die to make the impression. It's 1/4-inch bronze. It was done cold.
So in that big press thing you were talking about?
Then it was formed to this shape and welded.
Have you made anything like this bigger?
No, I have not. No. I always felt it was a good scale for an intimate space. So I could see it larger, but I think it would be a little different maybe.
Yeah. So you talk, I mean, a lot of your work is commission work, but do you find that you keep coming back to just being creative, you know, just like, I don't know what I'm going to make today, but something will come out?
Yeah, I try to set aside some time for that. Yeah. I do. Yeah. It's part of, the commission work will inspire the other work as well as the other way around. Mm-hmm. So the artistic side will go into the commission work and the architectural work, and a lot of times architectural work will inspire the creative work, so it works both ways.
Yeah, well, this is a cool piece. I think this will be here at the Art Center for a long time. So what about the piece over there on the wall? That's part of a railing that's in somewhere prominent?
Yeah, it's the Atlanta Stadium, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It was commissioned for the private owner's box. Did
you get some tickets out of it?
I did not.
What?
No. I got to go down there and work in the heat and with the other 3,000 people that were working on it. Yeah, it was a very hectic construction site. They were trying to build it very quickly, so there wasn't a lot of time to finish it. I believe they left his suite for the last so that nobody messed it up.
Yeah.
So basically we came in right before it opened, and it was a difficult timeline. It was a difficult place to work. It was a high-profile job, so it made it very difficult, as well as during that time I had several other large commissions that I was working on. So
did this go, I see that it's angled, so is this part of railings going up, and then is it part of a front of the box too?
No, it was a private stair from the first level to the second level. It was in his private suite, basically up 2 flights and a balcony, both sides of the flight though.
So how long is the whole piece? I mean, how much of this did you have to do?
There's probably about 80 feet of railing that we built. It bolted to an existing stair, or the stair that they built, and then the wood came in after we were done, and then the glass came in last.
Is this the prototype of what you took to him and said, this is what I want to do?
Right, and the only changes we had, really, we didn't have the bolts that were visible. They were actually, you couldn't see where I had bolted it on. So a lot of times, if I want you to see a connection, I'll make it so it's interesting. If I don't, I'm going to hide it.
Cool. So they said it's got to have a falcon, and they let you kind of pick how the falcon turned out?
When I received the information, it said on the plans, railing by Michael Dillon. So then I came up with the idea.
Yeah.
I felt like I had arrived at that point if it was on the plan. So
Way cool. Question.
Michael, this is all forged metal, correct? So there's no casting done. There's no some artists will do cast metals and they have a mold and they're poured.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the motif of those wings repeated in every one of the railing. Each of these was hand.
yeah, each one's different. Each one was done as an individual piece. Even the talons, I made a die, heated up a piece of metal, pounded that die into the metal, and then that gave me my negative to pound the bronze into. And then even at that point, it was gone back into and chiseled and peened to make it what it is. But yeah, every piece was different. There's different sizes for the balcony as well as the stair. I think there was 17 or 18 of them that we built.
Did you do the glass too?
I hired,
So it was all ready to rock. All they had to do was just put it on.
Well, through the process of the drawings, I mean, all the measurements I had to give them to cut every piece of glass and every hole. So that was all on me. So they just, they cut it and came and put it on, and we finished the piece.
So you're working on a definite deadline.
Yeah, and a couple of the pieces of glass weren't on the truck the day that they arrived, so it was quite interesting. It was stressful. It was a tough project, but it turned out in the end, and he loved it. So
Yeah, okay, that's good. Heck yeah.
Was this one of the first times you used the leather wrap?
Actually, there's a piece on the back side of this. We had used it for the first time for the Arthur Blank family office.
Wrap it yourself?
No, this product's sold from Garrett Leather, and they have different patterns and colors that you can pick.
Any other questions? All right, cool. So this one's called Unity, and you talked about this one earlier. We saw the design for it, the drawings for it, and this was part of the Martin Luther King
Gateway.
Memorial place for him.
It's a gateway they developed from 285 all the way to Stadium. So that corridor was being propagated with sculpture and artwork. So this was part of that project. It was a proposal to Atlanta for part of that project. My piece was not picked.
Yeah, well,
I was one of 3 people invited to give a proposal.
okay. Well, when you have something like this and you like it and you love it, and Atlanta says, maybe not, can you then propose it to somebody else
Yeah,
next time there's
it's
a
for
thing?
sale.
Okay. I mean, like another city
I would
or
love
whatever.
to build the piece. I think it's a great piece, and I think it would mean a lot to a city to have it. So.
Right. I mean, but you would anticipate it being something big.
This proposal was for a 30-foot tall sculpture.
And this is bronze?
Stainless bronze and steel.
And the big piece would be stainless bronze and steel too? Wow. 30 feet high? That's crazy. So what was the inspiration for this? I mean, once again, we've got movement. And when I looked at it the first time, I never really saw it as like the big piece. My eyes kept following the flow of it. And so was that intentional? Is that, how did that come
Well,
about?
I wanted to create a movement a forward movement to the work, or a walking forward movement. And I also felt like the three materials would lend themselves well to the idea of unity of the three materials, or
Right, the unity of all of us, yeah. So this is 3 different metals, and so this one is the bronze.
that's iron,
Oops,
bronze,
there we go.
stainless.
Okay, cool. And so when you pitch these things, is it a group of people that you're telling them all of this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
what is that like?
Yeah, I'm not a great speaker, but I did okay, I think.
Yeah.
Pitching your idea, it can be, everybody comes to the table with something different. So the 2 other artists, I mean, their pieces look nothing like this. So you really have to, I think, try to get them to understand your approach and what you have to offer.
Was this the first idea you came up with, or was this, when you're doing a project like this, do you go, okay, I'm going to think of this, I'm going to think of that, and you read a little bit about Martin or whatever, you kind of get in your head what he meant to everybody, and then you kind of go off and come up with several options of your own?
Yeah, I mean, this one changed considerably from the original concept. I had envisioned almost a head on this part of the piece, but really couldn't figure out a way to do it well. So I felt I'd let the material speak for itself rather than to try and replicate his facial features in the work.
Right. Is this, did you make this all at once? I mean, are all these things made separately and then they fit together? Or?
Yeah, so it's bolted. You can't really see where it's bolted, but you can't weld these. You could weld these materials together, but it probably wouldn't look real well.
Right.
So I decided to bolt it together. But they are separate pieces of material.
Cool. Any questions?
So what size bar would that be when you scaled it up to 30 feet?
I believe this was like, it was like 3-inch or something that I was gonna work. And like 2-inch plate or.
So this is,
The 30 feet actually came from the light element that actually went through here, and it was much taller. It was like probably another 10, 15 feet taller than this point. Yeah, it was carbon fiber and acrylic rods around a light. And that was going to be part of a light element to the sculpture, which I was really intrigued by. And I felt it lended something to the work. It also had another bronze pad at the bottom where I intended to have some words, some text that was beneficial to understanding the work too. So there was different elements to this that you don't really see here, but
right.
this is the main hunk of the.
Well, I mean, it's still cool. So there was going to be light coming up through here, is that what you? Oh, that's kind of neat. Well, speaking of, when things are placed and they're out there in the world, do you get involved in how things are lit? I mean, do you consider that? Like, at night, I want this part of it accented more than others, or you just kind of like let them do their thing?
No, I try and include that in my proposal. like Ascension had lighting, Aileron had lighting. So, I mean, Ascension was actually the whole landscape was part of the proposal. So we did it all. I mean, from the lighting to the landscaping to
That's
the
the
sculpture.
one in Duluth. Yeah. How do you know when you're done? I mean, when you're twisting this, do you go, oh, I need to twist it another inch? Or, I mean, do you step back as you're making this? Do you step back and go, no, a little bit more?
Yeah, I think there's a time to say it's done, no?
Yeah.
A lot of times you'll get lucky and it'll work out, but.
Right. Do you get input from Lauren?
Definitely, yeah,
Yeah.
and my peers as well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Kind of go, hey,
Try
guys,
to.
what do you think of this? And they're like, wow, it's perfect. So, cool. Anything else about this? Anything that y'all wanted to ask, add?
If that's sitting out in the exterior, does the iron oxidize more than the other two materials? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, the idea for this one the stainless probably would have stayed mostly the way it was. The iron would have been a natural finish as well as the bronze. And I think the bronze, would have had to be upkept a little bit. I did also have an idea of adding some gold leaf to the bronze in part of it.
Would the bronze go brown? What would the bronze go?
Yeah, it normally goes a little darker. But as most sculptures that you see, figurative stuff, it goes to the darker and sometimes green side. But, preservation, you can repatina work.
Cool. So you don't have you ever considered like color on these, or does it even
I don't do
stick to
color
it?
very well. Blue's pretty good.
Yeah, that's right. Blue is not bad outside.
I've done a red sculpture.
Oh, yeah? But mostly not.
But mostly not,
It's okay.
yeah.
There's
I
plenty
like
of-
the natural materials.
Right, yeah.
And you don't have really much upkeep on those.
Yeah, true.
So,
What kind of maintenance would you have to do?
I mean, Aileron's been there, what year was that? 15? And it still looks fine. I mean, no, there really isn't any maintenance on it. You have to grease the bearings every year or so, but yeah, it'll be there probably in 1,000 years. I mean,
Cool.
this is patinaed bronze. The stainless was kind of a brushed and sandblasted finish, and the iron was also kind of a patina, a rust finish. Wax. It's waxed. I'm sorry?
What kind of wax?
Paste wax. Yeah, like Johnson's paste furniture wax type stuff.
Wow. You have to buy a lot
Yeah.
of it if it was 30 foot tall.
A lot of this in here is just wax on the iron, natural patina.
But outside, the wax goes away or it stays there?
I tend to use on the outside work an oil and wax mix. So the oil helps the wax stay a little bit longer, but eventually it'll go away.
But that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's all part of it.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
changes, you
Yeah.
know, and
Come back in a year
shows
and go,
its
hey, that's different.
age,
Right.
kind of like us.
That's correct. Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get you some
How about
beeswax.
that?
There we go. So, way cool. So, we're going to move over to the tools and have him talk to us about that stuff. This is from the Dillon torture chamber,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's where all the dead come,
Pardon?
all the dead.
Yes, I understand.
So
now we
this
know the
is-
inspiration
yeah,
for all the
this is-
skulls.
This is the tool that actually made this piece. Another tool that helped make this work. So this one was made, well, actually the video is showing process of this right now, but started making these in 2011, I think. And they've always just been kind of a fun project for me. People gravitate towards them. It's a pretty iconic symbol
Yeah.
of what we are. you
So
know.
how did you come up with, I think I'll make a skull? Or was there something you watched, some
I was
movie or
actually
something?
working on bird at the time, and I thought about a skull. I went with a bird skull,
Yeah.
So that was kind of where it all started.
They're cool.
But I
And,
made them different sizes, different materials, and
Right. And you sell a lot of those, don't you?
I sell a few.
Yeah, they're cool. What is that, just paint?
It's gold,
Gold?
gold leaf.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow. And these things are heavy. If you haven't tried to pick one of these up, good gosh almighty. So how many things have you dropped? Speaking of, you dropped anything on your toes lately? Or are you...
Usually wear steel toes in the shop, but these are just an exercise that I use on the power hammer. Make these facets with a chunk, and basically just kind of more or less an exercise, but they're fun to make.
Oh, I would think so. Yeah. So on the table behind you, to your left, are a bunch of the tools. If you want to go through, are all of them in use today, or are some of those historical tools, or a little of both?
They are historical. I think a lot of the bigger tools, like this is what they call a clapper die. It has a ball in the center of it, so you stick the piece of metal in there and you can create a ball on the end of a piece of metal. They came out of a shop in Macon, I believe.
You hammer it down, you put the ball in there and then hammer it?
Yep.
With one of the big machines?
Yeah, but I use most of these. This is an isolating tool to use under the power hammer. But they're all very nicely made. They were made by a blacksmith on a power hammer to use on a power hammer.
Right.
And they're all tool steel, so they're really nice pieces, and I'm privileged to own them.
Yeah. Well, so when you're out in the world, you run across blacksmith tools, and you're like, oh, I need that. I mean, so so your wall is just like Stan's wall was like lined with things you found.
I have a
over
few.
here. Yep.
I need more, but
Sure. So when your hammer is banging on that thing, how does it not change the shape of that?
well, it's cold.
So everything else is heated.
Yes.
Okay.
So when you put the piece of metal in there, it's heated,
Okay.
red hot. I mean, this anvil was forged. So basically the same process. These types of tools were actually used to form an anvil. I mean, this shape here,
Oh yeah.
the shape there. So that's kind of how it's done.
Yeah. So what are some of the more interesting? I mean, all of them are cool. What's the one that's curved down there? What is that? It's like the spiral. What is that for?
This is a scrolling jig, so this is used mostly in architectural work, where you see the concentric scroll there. Just wrap it around.
So you wrap the metal around that?
Yeah, so when it's hot, you just bring it on around, and that creates the same shape most of the time.
Yep.
So similar shape.
So if you're looking at different spirals or different whatevers, you have one of those, it's not a mold, but it's kind of is, where it can generate that same shape over and over.
Yeah, and I have several sizes and shapes. Some of them may be not exactly, like they could be ovals.
Yeah.
So, or they could be whatever shape I choose. So it's a tool that I make to help me make the work.
Do you buy those like that when they come like that?
No,
Or do you make that?
we make these, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Everything really on this table besides the hammers, well, this hammer I made, so you can make all these tools,
Wow.
at the forge.
Okay. So blacksmith, all you need is a few things to get started, then you can make all your tools.
Yeah, I mean, all those I made that are hanging up. The tongs.
Yeah, those are scary. So the picture in the middle, is that the Arthur Blank place?
Yep. That's the stadium rail.
Yeah. So that's cool. And the other two are, well, we've kind of seen these other slides in the presentation earlier. So what's down there? What is that, a foot?
Yep, a little foot. So again, just trying to work, the material into a different shape. So it would start as a bar. I believe this was 1 inch by maybe 2 inches wide, just
Yeah.
rectangle. I believe this tool was actually used right here. See that?
Yeah. So in the video behind you, that's the big hammer, right?
That's the 500-pound Bradley. It's the largest mechanical hammer they made. That's the one that weighs 9 tons.
Wow.
So the head weighs 500 pounds, and I think I'm forging 3-inch bar there.
So what are you trying to do in that video? You're flattening one side, getting ready
Yeah,
to...
it tapers out, so it moves the material in a direction that you're forcing it to go into, and then I'll turn it and do it again, turn it and do it again.
It lengthens it?
It does, stretches it.
Wow. So this is one of the skulls you're making?
Yep. And that's a small pneumatic hammer, and it moves rather quickly.
Yeah. So how does it, we don't see it in the picture, but aren't you using your feet to make it come down and lay
Yeah,
on it?
there's a treadle that I use. It's foot activated. It can be driven like the big one. It does have the same mechanism that you
Driven meaning what?
you can control the air and where the ram goes by 2 different levers. So you got one for the throttle and one for the motion.
Is that the one where 2 people have to work it?
Yeah, both of the hammers normally were driven, but I've hooked up treadles to them so that I can run them by myself.
That's cool. So any questions about this, about the tools, about the skulls? So what other, so you've got a block of metal. What else have you tinkered with making past the skulls? Is there something else? And you're like, okay, I need to make some acorns or whatever.
I've made an anvil before.
You did? Like this?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Flowers.
Yeah, lots
Flowers.
of. I mean, there's everything in here is a little different. I mean,
And all the stuff on the touch table over here.
Yeah, I mean, those
was
are
all
all-
made in that same kind of process, right?
right.
Yeah.
And generally, you know, you have just a limited amount of heat, so you can see in this, I'm using all the heat that I have
Right.
from the time I started. So I can almost make the complete object in one heat.
Before it cools off and it won't work anymore.
Right.
How long does it take it to cool off?
Well, I guess that was about, what, 3 minutes, 4 minutes? Maybe the most.
Well, cooling off to work it is different than cooling off to pick it up.
Oh,
So
yeah.
how long till you can go, oh yeah, I'm gonna sit it over there
Yeah,
on the
it may
table?
take a half hour, 40 minutes, maybe an hour for that little piece to cool. Something bigger, you know, like that anvil may take a day,
Wow, really?
you know, if you just let it sit there.
So you have to have material that you can sit things on? Or does it just,
A lot of times you can quench it. A lot of times you do want to quench it to make it hard.
as in water?
Yeah, water or oil. Do some blade work. You want to use oil.
Cool. Very cool. Questions?
Do you watch a lot of Forged in Fire on TV, or is that driving you?
It kind of puts me to sleep, but I enjoy it.
So how did you make the knives for The Walking Dead?
Well,
Is
we
it
got
that
kind of
thing?
behind the scenes guy right here.
Oh, yeah.
Paul Brock is a fabulous knife maker, and he helps me a lot with those.
Oh, cool.
When things need to get sharp and pointy, then he calls me in.
Oh, yeah?
I do the grinding for him.
Oh, cool.
But he's the man for the lines and the designs.
Right. But is it a cut and hammer thing, or, I mean, is it all the same stuff? Or is it-
Sometimes we forge, and then we grind, and then we harden. Sometimes we get stuff cut out, and then we grind, and then we harden. Just depends on what we're making.
Do they come to you with a design and say, make this?
Sometimes. The recent piece we pulled off of a cartoon, because the book, I guess, The Dead was comic. It's comic book. So a lot of the story plot was arrived from a comic book. So what we were given was a comic image of what we were to make.
Right.
For the Darrell knives, I came up with the idea and pitched it, and they asked me to build them.
Cool.
And a lot of seasons 6, 7, and 8 were just build me this. They
Right.
called me on a Wednesday and want it by Monday.
Yeah.
So
That's kind of the way it works. Didn't you say they used your hands in there some? It had the blacksmith
yeah,
on.
I'm in a couple episodes.
There you go, your hands.
Yeah, my hands, my hammer.
That's
Raising
pretty
it.
cool. That's neat. Any other questions? All right. One last stop. We'll go over there and then we'll wrap up. Last place. So this is Victory that's over in Milton, right?
Yep.
And so this is what you presented to them first.
Right.
Okay. And from that, they were like, yeah, go make it. And how tall is this in real life?
It's about 12 and a half feet tall,
Wow. So about the height of this.
and it weighs about 1,000 pounds.
So did it end up being dark and light? And I mean, is it pretty
Yep.
much this?
The base was patina steel, and this was forged from iron, but it was powder coated silver.
Yeah. So because of the ball field, you kind of like, okay, I need to do somebody winning kind of thing?
Well,
or-
there's kind of two expressions from this work. I mean, we kind of had the idea of trying to emote two emotions. So if you look at it from one way, it says something different than the other way. So you get kind of two different ideas from it.
That thing over there doesn't spin though, does it?
This had, the piece had the grooves in both sides. The big piece did.
Okay.
But no, it does not move.
Gotcha. At least let's hope not, right?
Well, I could move it if you wanted me to. It actually had a pin that went down into the base. It has a set screw, so
Yeah.
when I final positioned it, I could move it with a wrench right here. I could turn it wherever I wanted.
Did they tell you that's what that they wanted something to represent victory? Or they just said, we want a piece for the park.
Yeah, it was my idea.
Okay.
So it was my concept. It was the idea that I came up with, and there were several other pieces that depicted the different sports that they played. We called them a sports panel, and that's where the handprints came from,
Right.
which are at that end down there.
The handprints are where on the
Well,
piece?
there's 4 panels on what they called the Wall of Fame, where they announced the winners or put up pictures of players, and it had a relief. They're 1 foot wide, 5 feet tall, 1 inch thick steel, and then they had the relief of the equipment, like the football was real dimension, and then there was handprints and footprints, and then at the top there was some prints of the fields that we made an impression on.
Okay.
So there was some different things going on as far as dimension on those panels. But each one, there was football, lacrosse, soccer, and baseball. So there's 4 different panels.
Cool. So does every kid have his picture made in front of this?
I don't know.
Especially after they win?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't
They're
know.
probably standing there like this, I would
Yeah,
think.
maybe.
Yeah, that's cool. Oh man, I had a good question. Oh yes. So out of all the pieces we've seen, other than the skulls, this is the only one I think that has human form, right?
Bird.
Bird, yes, correct. So how did you? Because most of them that I see are more abstract or whatever, but this one kind of depicts a person. So, did you come up with something other than a person, or was this what you landed on first?
It was really the idea that I was going for.
Yeah.
I mean, to emote that idea of victory. I mean, that's what I was after. Hopefully I captured that.
Yes.
You know?
Oh yeah. It looks like something from the Olympics or whatever. It really does, and that's what it reminds me of. Any questions from anybody? So, what's next? Where's your brain taking you next? I know you'll be asked to do some more railings because that's something that
Yeah, the
seems like you're
architectural
pretty good
work
at.
is still going, you know.
Yeah.
We're working on that type of stuff. I have a few RFQs going out this month, so we'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm still trying to make art,
yeah,
public art. I enjoy making public art. I think that it's important, you know, that everybody gets the opportunity to enjoy it. You know, a lot of the architectural work is kind of hidden, so it's nice that, you know, everybody can enjoy the public art.
right.
And I, you know, try and develop a language visual language that I can communicate with community through. So
Yeah. So when you first said, I think I want to be a blacksmith, that was at what point? High school, college?
I studied briefly in Cortona, Italy, through University of Georgia. And I remember sitting up there on that hill, banging away on stuff, and had no idea how I was going to do it, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do.
Cool. And now you're here. So, I mean, how does it make you feel when you walk in and you see stuff? It's only your stuff in an art center that's pretty cool.
I
like this.
appreciate the opportunity. I really do. I feel very fortunate to be able to show here and to meet everybody that I have, and
Yeah.
great opportunity. Thank you.
Well, we're thrilled it's here, and we're glad you made it tonight to tell us about everything, the behind the scenes and inside the mind of an artist. So I want to thank you for that, for being here. The show runs till July 23rd, I believe. And I want to thank again the City of Alpharetta and the Alpharetta Arts Center and Arts Alpharetta and everybody that's involved with this and everybody that came out tonight. We really appreciate it, and I hope you learned something, and this makes you really appreciate those big hammers. Stay out of their way. And but thank you so much, everybody.